Have you ever considered the economic consequences of global conflicts and how they shape our world? Have you ever thought about the transition from bullets to budgets, where the high price of war meets the intricacies of finance? In today's video, we will explore the secrets that lie beneath the smoke and chaos of war. This isn't your average discussion about battles and casualties. This is an intense examination of how wars become the battlegrounds of economies, where fortunes rise and fall and the consequences reverberate for generations. Wars aren't just a clash of weapons, they're a clash of economies. And trust us when we say wars are expensive. How expensive? Did you know the Iraq War cost the United States an estimated $2.4 trillion? That's more than the cost of the Vietnam War, the Korean War, and the First and Second World Wars combined. Yes, you heard that right. Trillions of dollars are poured into wars, draining valuable resources that could have been allocated towards education, healthcare, and infrastructure development. Over the years, war has become big business. Defense contractors profit from conflicts, creating a complex web of economic interests. It's an unfortunate reality that war can drive economic growth in certain sectors while leaving others struggling to recover. War is not just a matter of conflict and destruction, it has become a significant driver of economic activity. The military-industrial complex, a term coined to describe the close relationship between governments, defense contractors, and the military, plays a crucial role in shaping economies. When nations engage in war, vast sums of money are allocated to military contracts. These contracts involve the production and supply of weapons, ammunition, military equipment, and various other goods and services necessary for warfare. Defense contractors and manufacturers benefit from these contracts, often generating substantial profits. The military-industrial complex creates a web of economic interests and incentives, where the production and distribution of military-related goods become key drivers of economic growth. However, it's essential to recognize that the economic gains from the military-industrial complex can come at the expense of other sectors. While defense contractors and related industries thrive during times of conflict, other sectors of the economy may struggle to recover. The focus on military production and spending can divert resources and attention away from sectors such as healthcare, education, infrastructure, and innovation, hindering their growth and development. The complex interplay between war and the economy raises critical questions about the true cost and value of conflict. While certain sectors may benefit economically from war, the broader impact on society, particularly in terms of resource allocation and long-term economic growth, must be carefully considered. The high price of war encompasses not only the immediate financial costs but also the potential opportunity costs incurred by prioritizing military expenditures over other vital areas of society. Did you know that in 2020 alone, global military spending reached a jaw-dropping $1.9 trillion? To put that into perspective, that's enough to provide clean water to the entire planet for over 200 years. War certainly comes at a high price, but the question remains, who pays? Governments, my friend. Ultimately, it's the taxpayers who bear the burden. Increased military spending means diverting funds from essential sectors like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. This can lead to a compromised quality of life for citizens. War is a ruthless force that shapes nations and defines history. But beyond the destruction and loss of lives, it exacts an immense financial toll on a nation's economy. Wars lead to economic instability, decreased investment, and increased unemployment. The financial burden of war is not limited to the countries that are directly involved in the conflict. It is also shared by countries that provide financial and military assistance to the warring parties. For example, the United States has provided billions of dollars in financial assistance to Ukraine since the Russian invasion began in February 2022. This assistance has helped to fund Ukraine's military as well as its humanitarian efforts. The United States also spent $6.4 trillion on the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, which is more than the combined GDP of several countries. In fact, at its peak, the United States spent an average of $186 million per day on the Iraq War. This includes the cost of deploying troops, providing logistical support, and purchasing equipment. These costs quickly add up and can consume a significant portion of a country's budget. This is because when countries provide financial and military assistance to warring parties, they are essentially investing in the conflict. This investment can come in the form of direct payments, loans, or the provision of weapons and equipment. When a war ends, the countries that have invested in the conflict may not be able to recoup their losses. This is because the warring parties may be unable to repay their debts or may be unwilling to do so. In addition, the countries that have invested in the conflict may also be indirectly impacted by it. For example, they may experience increased security risks, decreased trade, and higher inflation. From military expenditures to long-term healthcare for veterans, the financial burden of war extends far beyond what you can imagine. It reverberates through national budgets, impacting infrastructure development, education, healthcare, and social welfare programs. A key consequence of war for a nation is the severe disruption of trade. When wars start, supply chains are disrupted, trade routes become unsafe, and commerce grinds to a halt. This disruption affects not only the countries directly involved in the war but also neighboring nations that rely on those trade routes for their own economic stability. One of the most devastating consequences of war is its impact on economic growth. Conflict-ridden countries experience an average GDP growth rate of 2% lower than non-conflict countries. The economic consequences of global conflict can be felt for many years after the conflict has ended. For example, the economic damage caused by the Second World War is still being felt today. The economic consequences of war go beyond the immediate destruction caused by conflict. When wars break out, they disrupt various aspects of an economy, leading to long-term consequences that impact society as a whole. One of the most significant impacts is on trade. Disruptions in trade routes, embargoes, and the destruction of infrastructure can severely hamper a nation's ability to engage in commerce with other countries. This can result in a decline in exports and imports, limiting economic growth and development. Additionally, the displacement of populations due to war creates a refugee crisis, placing a heavy burden on both the affected nation and neighboring countries. Providing aid, shelter, and support for refugees comes at a considerable cost, straining already limited resources. The social and economic consequences of large-scale displacement are profound and can lead to instability in both the host and affected countries. An example is the ongoing conflict in Syria, which reveals the extent of the economic consequences. Syria has experienced a devastating decline in its GDP, with estimates suggesting a decline of around 60%. This decline not only affects the government and businesses but also has a direct impact on the everyday lives and livelihoods of the Syrian people. The economic consequences of war are not confined to battlefields but extend to all facets of society, disrupting trade, shattering infrastructure, and creating widespread hardships for individuals and communities. Infrastructure is another industry that bears the brunt of a war's destructive force. Roads, bridges, ports, power plants, and communication networks are often targeted and destroyed during military operations. The cost of rebuilding and repairing these vital infrastructures is astronomical, diverting resources that could have been invested in education, healthcare, and other areas essential for economic growth. Governments often borrow or raise taxes to finance wars, leading to budget deficits and increased national debt. This can have long-term consequences for future generations as the burden of war-related costs is passed on. Additionally, the economic impact on families, such as higher prices and reduced job security, further emphasizes the high price individuals pay for conflict. During wars, governments allocate significant portions of their budgets to military needs. But what happens when the war ends? How do nations redirect their resources to rebuild infrastructure, improve education, and stimulate economic growth? War can have a ripple effect on the global economy. It can lead to increased prices for goods and services, decreased investment, and decreased trade. War can also lead to political instability, which can make it difficult for countries to recover from conflict. The ripple effect of war can be felt for many years after the conflict has ended. For example, the economic damage caused by the First World War led to the Great Depression. The ripple effects of war on a nation's economy can be significant and long-lasting. The destruction of infrastructure, the displacement of people, the loss of human capital, high levels of debt, and regional instability are just a few of the ways that war can impact an economy. While the human cost of war is immeasurable, the economic cost is also significant and should not be overlooked. Knowing all this, it is important to understand that war is never the solution to resolving conflict. Thank you for joining us in this enlightening video. If you enjoyed this video as much as we did making it, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We've reached the end of this video, and we have a question for you. How can we resolve conflicts without resorting to war? How can we prevent the financial burden of war from hindering essential sectors? Please share your thoughts and insights in the comments below. You can also check out other videos from us like the one showing on your screen right now. See you in the next video.